Hey, this is John Carlos, and I'm here with a look at the McFarlane Toys Color Tops action figure of Negan from The Walking Dead. This is a pretty good figure. There's a lot of good things, a few bad things. We'll get into that in a moment, but I just want to stress one of the things that I really like about this figure that McFarlane seems to be finally getting right is they're not putting them in one simple pose thing. I like sculpt, but I also like some articulation, and we kept getting these Walking Dead figures where their like legs and torsos were just in one simple pose you could put them in. Sure, there was articulation, but it was all pointless because they only looked good in one position. Now we actually have a figure that just has basic like shoulder joints and elbows and knee joints. You know, you can just put them in different little poses. Finally, makes sense. However, there are some problems with that. This joint right here below the waist, it's kind of pointless. All it does is that. It's just like a little swivel at the top. You can't kick the leg out or forward. It's just articulation for articulation's sake, which is only exacerbated when you see that he's got articulated knees, and he's got a little swivel at the boot, but if you can't do anything with the knees because the top, like if you can't bring his leg forward, then what's the point of having an articulated knee? I mean, it's not like there's an ankle joint where I can kind of put him in like a walking position. It's just wasted articulation if the leg isn't going to go anywhere. So, I don't get it. I feel like McFarlane Toys still says, you know, oh, people will want more articulation, well, here you go, have some, but like they don't really care about like making it, you know, useful. Shoulder joints are still good though, even though I think the fact that you can see that peg there is annoying. You could see it in the elbow, which is, you know, kind of obnoxious, but not too bad at the elbow, but seeing it in the shoulder I think is really ugly. There is a swivel at the top of the pants. There is a swivel at the wrist. And yeah, it's a ball joint. And then we get the head articulation, which is decent. There we go. I think it's a ball joint. The scarf kind of limits how much you can move it. The scarf is a little loose, but still it's a little tight. But still, for the most part, the articulation on this is decent. None of the joints are tight, so that's nice. Everything moves really well. Now the sculpt, though, that's where this figure is a big winner. The simulated effect of leather on the jacket is freaking great. Great job on the sculpt. Again, the elbow and the little ratchets there really kind of ruined the sculpt a bit. But just the wrinkling of the leather going down the arms. Here's a close-up look at the back. You can see that even though there's Jack Black, they added like a sort of reddish, brownish wash to it, which gives it more of a fabric-y look. So props to them for that. The sculpting on like the edge of the jacket, the sculpting on his little scarf, the sculpting of the zipper and the belt and all that looks really good. Sculpting on the pants is pretty good. They did a good job capturing the color of gray he wears in the show, and around the knee joint I like the wrinkling of the pants and the way it kind of bunches at the boots. The way when you tuck pants into boots and they kind of puff out a bit, they did a good job capturing that. The boots themselves look good. I like the buckle paint on them. The sculpt on the boots looks really nice. Again, kind of a worn down leathery effect with some brown paint on the edge. It gives it kind of a worn down look. The seam going up the side is good. Overall, the sculpt on the outfit is pretty great. The head, on the other hand, well, it's not great. There's a really strong sculpt to it. I mean, I don't actually know if this was hand sculpted. I think this might be laser scanned. But the overall shape of Jeffrey Dean Morgan's head is definitely there. The eyes, the nose, the smile, the general head shape, and even the hair definitely looks like Jeffrey Dean Morgan. The paint leaves something a little bit to be desired. They've gone with some kind of realistic paint in the past, like with Carl, where I almost think it was like 3D spray painted on. I don't know what the technology is, but you could definitely tell there was some like digital shading. This is much more simpler. This is just straight up paint, and I think the whiskers of his beard and mustache, it's a little cartoonish and simple for me. Just the white lines. When you see like the prototype images of the figure, which and I don't mean those initial digital ones where you can tell this is like a 3D digital image. I'm talking about like the secondary like prototype photos. You got a better sense of the mustache and the beard, chin area, the scruff. This is big strokes of black and white lines, and I think McFarlane Toys is better than this. Despite that, though, the sculpt of the lips, the paint of the lips, and the teeth look good, and this particular figure's eyes look good. I say this particular figure because I hunted for this in stores and saw some really bad ones. There's a little line that goes right above his eyeball, like it's the edge of his eyelid. There are some where that line is constantly off. There were a bunch where it was like too low or too high. If you care about that sort of thing, be on the lookout for paint jobs on the face, especially the mouth area. There's a lot where the teeth paint went all over the lips, or the lip paint bled into the teeth and gave him like pink teeth. This is problematic. I saw a bunch in the stores, and this is the best one that I found, even though the zipper paint on this one is kind of all over the place. I still preferred like a good face versus, you know, proper paint. Like if you see on the belt, all the rivets for the holes are off the hole. Like, this isn't the best paint job on the belt area or the jacket area, but I'll take it. I just want to show you guys, he's got this right hand, which has a trigger finger, you know, for all those times that Negan uses a gun. But the fingers are at an angle. I think that's to hold Lucille at more of a downward angle, so we'll put that in his hand in a moment. Here's a look at Lucille. Pretty basic, well done. The little bummer is it got a little bent in the packaging, so you can see there's a little like lump in the handle. But, you know, the brown paint looks good. There's a little bit of dark paint on it. Reads like wood. Silver paint reads like barbed wire. And then he also comes with this alternate hand, which is, you know, straight-fingered for just holding the bat over his shoulder. We'll do that later in a moment. And then lastly, there's the figure stand. Basic, color tops, figure stand. Says Walking Dead on it. Right there. It was actually quite a bit of a pain in the ass to get this bat into his hand. This thumb is really tight. Like the whole hand fingertip area is really tight. Took quite a while to pry his thumb open. And you try to get the bat, you know, kind of in line with his fingers, but it hits the jacket there and bends downward. So then you start getting a bent bat. Because the bat is actually made of a pretty soft material, so I don't like the way it bends and warps the shape of the handle. So I try to get as close to the edge as I can, just so I can have it in his hand like that. It's not at that great of an exaggerated angle, so it's not really worth it to use this hand. I mean, the wrist does hinge a bit, so you can get something of an angle. It'd be cool if you could line up his head with the bat, but the scarf really does limit how much you can tilt his head downward. So if you wanted to do one of these kind of things, it doesn't really work out that great. That's as far as the wrist bends, so you can't really get the bat lined up with his hand. Not really the biggest fan of this hand, but there you go. I like this other hand much better. First of all, if you wanted to, you could actually bring his right and left hand together to like grip the bat. I mean, you can't really get him at too much of an angle. I mean, if you want to turn his head, you could sort of, but anyway, with a little bit of playing, you could get his hand, both hands, to grip it. But I think the best way to display this is to put it up and over his shoulder. Shoulder and elbow articulation really allow you to do that, especially with this hand. It looks really good. So that's going to be my preferred way of displaying this. His other hand at least can come to rest at the side or be like, hey, kind of whatever. One other thing I want to show you guys before I wrap this up is the figure stand. Has the little peg that goes into the hole in his foot, but it's a little uneven. And the articulation of the legs does not allow you to like bring the legs any closer together, so you're kind of just stuck with this like hovering foot thing. It'd be nice if the articulation allowed you to not deal with that, but again, there's some pointless, needless articulation on here that doesn't really do much. Despite some of my complaints, I like this figure. I think it's got a great sculpt. The paint job on the body is great, and if you could find one that's got good eyeball paint, eyebrow paint, and mouth paint, it definitely has Jeffrey Dean Morgan's sculpt. This one totally looks like Negan. There's no denying that, if you can find a good one. I like the pose that you can strike there. I like this figure mostly. As a fan of Negan, I'm pretty satisfied with this. It's weird to say I'm a fan of Negan because I also can't stand Negan, but there is a kind of a love-hate thing with him. This figure, for the most part, is good. Just be on the lookout for paint and stuff, and you know, your mileage may vary on whether his facial hair was painted well, if you can deal with that or not. I'm happy with it for the most part. Thanks for watching, everybody, and follow me on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. Oh, and just FYI, there is a Walmart exclusive bloody variant of this figure. I don't think I'm going to get it, but if you're interested, I highly recommend you check that out.